The document did not arrive with ceremony, no press conference, no warning. It appeared quietly, uploaded into the public record with the weight of a thunderstorm moving in without clouds. Buried inside a long sealed deposition was a ledger, names, dates, locations, connections that had never been meant to align in one place. Within hours, those who understood power knew the danger wasn't rumor anymore. It was structure. 8 high-ranking figures from elite global circles appeared repeatedly across the pages. Not politicians in office, not celebrities chasing attention, but individuals who lived above scrutiny, royalty-adjacent financiers, titled heirs, and private power brokers who moved between continents without leaving fingerprints. What froze institutions wasn't any single name, it was the overlap. One timeline intersected with a familiar public figure, someone whose rise had always been described as unlikely, spontaneous, even romantic, yet the ledger suggested something else: proximity, repetition, access. When the documents surfaced, official channels responded with nothing. No denial, no clarification, silence, the oldest defense of power. Inside historic walls, emergency protocols activated not with panic, but with restraint. Communication lines narrowed, advisors stopped speculating and began isolating risk. Far from those walls, the personal cost began to surface. A man who had once believed himself the rescuer now faced an impossible question. Had he been protecting someone, or had he been protected from something? The problem wasn't public opinion, it was exposure. The ledger did not accuse, it mapped. Cities repeated across pages, Mediterranean ports, financial hubs, private club districts known only to those who never queued. Locations associated not with tourism, but with discretion. The dates matched years previously described as quiet or unaccounted for in the public narrative. To outsiders, these years were portrayed as struggle and hustle. To anyone who understood the ledger, they looked like positioning. One venue appeared repeatedly in testimony, not as a social club, but as a connector, a place where introductions weren't accidental, where access was curated, where ambition met insulation. The document described it not as glamorous, but as efficient. And then there was the handler figure, never photographed clearly, rarely named outright, but present in movement logs, seating charts, transport arrangements, a facilitator rather than a friend, someone whose value came from knowing who should meet whom and when. Patterns emerged. Luxury travel inconsistent with reported income, appearances at private gatherings without explanation, objects, jewelry, accommodations, flights that left trails even when records were scrubbed. Money could vanish, emails could be deleted, but some things left residue. Inside the ledger were references to gifts that weren't purchased, stays that weren't booked, and access that wasn't earned. Not crimes on their own, but together they suggested dependency. What made institutions react wasn't scandal, it was liability. If even one of the 8 figures was forced into testimony, the ledger would stop being a document and become a chain reaction, and chains don't stop where you want them to. The most dangerous implication wasn't what the public figure might have done, it was what she might have known. Because knowledge is currency, and currency is leverage. As advisors reviewed the intersections, one conclusion hardened. The story sold to the public had been simplified to the point of fiction, not because it was false, but because complexity would have revealed the machinery underneath. This wasn't a love story that went wrong. It was a system that worked too well. Once the ledger surfaced, power shifted away from microphones and toward paperwork. Titles mattered less than jurisdiction. Loyalty mattered less than exposure. The strategy was no longer to defend a narrative, but to exit one. The individual at the center of the storm sensed it immediately. Invitations slowed, calls stopped being returned, contracts stalled without explanation. Influence, once assumed permanent, began to evaporate. Because elite systems do not punish loudly. They withdraw oxygen. What remained was a final bargaining chip: information, journals, memories, stories framed as truth. But information loses value when the risk of holding it exceeds the benefit of buying it. Networks didn't want exclusives anymore. They wanted distance. Behind the scenes, legal mechanisms activated with surgical precision. Residency questions, financial disclosures, immigration technicalities. Nothing dramatic, just pressure applied through process. The partner, once defiant, began to change. Less confrontational, more introspective. He walked as someone who had realized too late that bravery and understanding are not the same thing. When institutions close ranks, they don't argue, they extract. A quiet plan took shape. Not a confrontation, but a separation. Not a war, but a return. The language was neutral, family-focused, health-related, temporary. Once a jurisdiction changed, leverage changed with it. Those who had once believed themselves untouchable learned the oldest rule of power. Proximity to authority is not the same as possession of it. The ledger never needed to be proven in court to do its damage. It only needed to exist, because belief shapes action, and action reshapes reality. In the end, no arrest was required, no public reckoning staged. The system corrected itself the way it always does, by removing instability and restoring symmetry. Across an ocean, an institution presented continuity, calm faces, familiar rituals, the appearance of permanence. Elsewhere, lights burned late in a large house that no longer felt like a fortress, a place filled with objects that once symbolized arrival and now signaled excess. The story didn't end with disgrace, it ended with irrelevance, and that, in elite circles, is the harshest sentence of all.